The Caitlin Clark stimulus package, also known as the newly agreed upon CBA deal. Make no mistake about it, folks. Every time the owners came to the table and said, fine, we'll increase the salary cap to this, you can thank Caitlin Clark. Every time the owner said, fine, we'll pay for your housing again, you can thank Caitlin Clark. Every time the owner said, shoot, we really don't want to come up off this 15% number, but you know what? We'll move a little bit. You can thank CC20.
Aya Wilson didn't see this coming, and honestly, neither did anyone else who spent the last 2 years convincing themselves that the Caitlin Clark hype was overblown. You know the narrative. It's just media noise, ratings will cool off, the league had stars long before Clark and will survive just fine without all this attention. That belief. It just got shattered. Because the WNBA has officially ratified the most significant collective bargaining agreement in the history of professional women's basketball, and suddenly, everything people thought they knew about this league has been flipped on its head.
A'ja Wilson and all her Glazers could give a big thank you to Caitlin Clark for her getting paid. Ever since the league came to an agreement, all we've been hearing about is how A'ja Wilson is about to sign this historic Supermax deal like she just did it all on her own. No, you could thank Caitlin Clark for revolutionizing the game so you could get paid. We don't care how many MVPs and championships A'ja won or how she was already known. It doesn't matter. She didn't change the dynamic of the league for the players to get paid like this.
The numbers alone tell you how massive this shift really is. The salary cap didn't just rise, it exploded, jumping from $1.5 million to $7 million. The average player salary surged from roughly $120,000 to over $600,000, and the minimum salary? That now sits above $300,000. This isn't incremental change, this is transformative, life-altering money. These are the kinds of figures veteran players have been fighting for long before Caitlin Clark ever stepped onto a college court. And then came the number that lit everything up. Clark's own salary leap, skyrocketing from $78,066 in 2025 to $530,000 in 2026. The moment that figure hit the table, the reaction across the league was instant. The conversation didn't just shift, the entire building caught fire.
For example, 2024 Rookie of the Year Caitlin Clark, who made $78,066 in 2025, is poised to see her salary jump to $530,000 in 2026. So this year, she is about to jump to that salary, okay? Now, the other jump, the new provision would also be applicable to younger stars such as Aaliyah Boston, who is max eligible in 2026, and Paige Beckers, who is max eligible in 20.
Here's what really went down behind the scenes. For 17 months, the league and the Players Association were locked in intense negotiations, something everyone in women's basketball knew was inevitable. The old CBA. It was outdated, built for a version of the league that was still fighting for relevance. But that's not the reality anymore. This is now a league breaking viewership records, selling out arenas that hadn't seen full crowds in years, and landing broadcast deals that would have sounded unrealistic just 5 years ago. And at the center of all that growth, every metric, every meeting room where executives suddenly started paying attention, there was one name driving the momentum.
Why they had the battery in the back that they had was because of Caitlin Clark's impact. All of the numbers and the metrics that the players could point to, do you see these ratings? Well, Caitlin Clark effect. Do you see this attendance? Well, Caitlin Clark effect. Do you see the social media impressions? Well, Caitlin Clark effect. This is called the Caitlin Clark stimulus package, and it will go down as.
So when the new agreement finally dropped in March 2026, it came with something new. Something no one wanted to publicly attach to a single player, but everyone understood instantly. They called it the EPIC provision. Exceptional performance on initial contract. a fast-track salary mechanism designed specifically for players who transform the league's financial landscape before their rookie deals even expire. Caitlin Clark's name isn't written into that rule, but it doesn't have to be. Everyone across the basketball world knows exactly who it was built for. This provision is the league's quiet, official acknowledgement that not all players operate on the same level. Some players don't just play the game, they change the economics of it. And when that happens, the rules themselves have to adjust.
So, this WNBA collective bargaining agreement will fast-track the ability for players on a rookie-scale contract to make maximum and supermax salaries, sources told ESPN. The new provision, called EPIC, Exceptional Performance on Initial Contract, allows players to renegotiate their 4-year salary and earn the standard max that year if they were previously an all-WNBA first team or second team, or the Supermax if they won the MVP.
Now let's get real, because the numbers tell this story better than anything else ever could. In 2025, Caitlin Clark, the player who pushed the WNBA past 1 million viewers per game for the first time since 2008, the player who packed arenas across the country, the player whose presence alone could move broadcast ratings in ways no one else in the league could match, was making $78,066. Let that sink in. That's roughly the salary of a mid-level paralegal or an entry-level office worker in a mid-sized city. It's nowhere near what rookies make in leagues like the NBA, NFL, or Major League Baseball. Meanwhile, Clark was rewriting record books, selling merchandise, and bringing unprecedented attention to women's basketball. She was doing things the league had never seen before, while being paid a salary that wouldn't even cover a couple months of rent in a major city. That wasn't compensation, it was a gamble, a hope that she wouldn't stop and calculate her real value. But she did. And once the world did too, the league had no choice but to respond.
What has now happened is, because of the quote-unquote epic rule, I'm going to call it the Caitlin rule, because let's be real, she was the first person to have reached this, whether it be it's Caitlin, Aaliyah, and Paige are all eligible. I'm just going to call it the Caitlin rule. Just like the old Rose rule in the NBA, we're going to call it the Caitlin rule. So, ironically, if Caitlin goes and wins MVP this year, she's actually eligible for the Supermax in 2020.
Fast forward to 2026, and yes, the numbers finally move. Clark's salary jumps to $530,000, more than a 500% increase. On paper, that's huge. But take a step back before celebrating. Because even at that number, she's still one of the biggest bargains in modern sports. In 2025 alone, Clark generated $16.1 million in total earnings, between endorsements, appearances, and partnerships with brands like Nike, State Farm, Gatorade, and Wilson. She ranked among the highest-paid female athletes on the planet. And yet, her WNBA salary accounted for less than half of 1% of that total. Think about that. The league was receiving franchise-level impact at a cost that doesn't even make sense on paper. So yes, $530,000 is a step forward, but it's not true market value. It's simply the minimum adjustment the league could make without looking completely out of touch.
The way the team is structured, in order for this team to remain intact, Sophie would have to be willing to take a league minimum kind of deal, which is around $300,000. And I don't see that happening. Okay, and I believe also people are going to be shocked how much money Lexi Hull is about to be offered, because I think she's going to get offered $600,000 to $700,000 by somebody, and that is going to greatly complicate things.
But here's where things get complicated, because this isn't just about one player getting paid. When Clark's salary jumps from $78,000 to over $500,000, that money has to come from somewhere. And in the WNBA, that somewhere is the salary cap. The new cap sits at $7 million total for an entire roster. That's every player, every contract, every decision, all fitting into one fixed number. Clark alone now takes up over 7% of that cap. And that's before extensions, before max deals, before any long-term roster planning even begins. There's a word for what happens when your franchise star finally gets paid while other key players are due raises at the same time. Pressure. And the Indiana Fever are about to feel all of it.
I wish they would have had Kelsey Mitchell on here. Because after last season, I mean, look, Kelsey finished what? 3rd or 4th in the MVP voting? This is her contract to make as much money as she possibly can, I believe, in this league. And come next year, because I don't think that the Fever are going to be able to keep her next season. And one could argue, depending on how much you covet depth on a team, like how deep do you want your team to be? I think one could argue against re-signing Kelsey Mitchell this year.
Now bring Kelsey Mitchell into the picture, because she's the part of this story people aren't talking about enough. She's one of the league's most dangerous scorers and arguably the second best player on the Fever. But now, thanks to the new CBA, her situation just got a lot more expensive. If Indiana uses the core designation again, her salary could jump to $1.4 million, a supermax deal that reflects her talent, but also eats up 20% of the team's entire cap. At the same time, Aaliyah Boston is eligible for a max extension, and Clark herself could soon command a deal worth $1.3 million, eventually rising toward $1.7 million. Add those numbers together slowly. Clark, Boston, Mitchell. That's more than half the total cap already committed to just 3 players. And that's before filling out the rest of the roster, before depth, before role players, before building a championship-level team. That's the reality the Fever front office is staring at right now. This is what a historic payday looks like. Not from the outside, but from inside the limits of a $7 million system where every dollar suddenly matters more than ever.
I want Kelsey Mitchell to take a 1-year deal instead of a multi-year deal is due to this. Aaliyah Boston is eligible for the Supermax this year. The following year, Caitlin Clark is eligible for a Supermax, which could be worth $1.7 million, actually close to $2 million. So, who are you going to invest in? Kelsey Mitchell or Caitlin Clark? And that's why I say, don't play this game, Fever. I'm talking to organizations. I'm talking to Amber Cox, Kelly Crosskoff, and definitely Stephanie White. Don't mess this up. Please, for the love of God, do not mess this up. I don't mind if Kelsey Mitchell comes back for 1 year, but 1 year only.